In today's video, I will let you guys know what's the best build and ways to play around the team comps for Hu and Neuvillette that are going to be available in Phase 1 of version 4.1. Consider subscribing for a lot more content, and I will be making another video for Neuvillette and Venti in the upcoming days, so stay tuned to don't miss out on that video. Without wasting your time, let's get into the video. Starting off with the newest Hydro Catalyst 5-star that is being added to the game, Neuvillette. He will be an on-field Hydro DPS that scales with HP, and he uses a Catalyst as a weapon, and if you can't get his signature weapon, there are a couple of different weapons that have potential to work great on him as a free-to-play player. And since he scales off of HP, a craftable free-to-play option like Prototype Amber would be decent for him, since this weapon's substat is HP percentage and everyone has access to it from the beginning of the game. And if by any chance you are a low spender and you have the battle pass, you can also use Sacrificial Jade, which at Refinement rank 1 will add 32% to max HP, and Elemental Mastery will be increased by 40. So when Neuvillette is not on the field for more than 5 seconds, his maximum HP increases by 32% and his Elemental Mastery will be increased by 40. And these effects get cancelled after he is on the field for more than 10 seconds. And this weapon also has a substat of 36.7% crit rate at level 90, which is always nice to have. Now that we have weapon out of the way, we can talk about his artifact sets. And he can use the newest artifact sets in Fontaine, Maracas Hunter or Marichaus Hunter. If I'm pronouncing it wrong, forgive me. The 4-piece of this artifact set helps Neuvillette a lot, since he sacrifices HP every time he uses his charge attacks, and 2-piece of this artifact set will increase his charge and normal attacks by 15%, but that's not the main reason why you need to use this artifact set. In fact, the 4-piece bonus is the main reason, since when his current HP increases or decreases, his crit rate will be increased by 12% for 5 seconds, and it can stack 3 times, which will lead to a dramatically high increase in his damage output. And keep in mind that the higher Neuvillette's HP at the time of casting his charge attacks, the more damage it will inflict on enemies, and that's why you should try and focus on increasing his HP when building him through artifacts, weapons, and all of that. And his second option for artifacts would be 4-piece Heart of Death, which will increase his Hydro damage by 15% for 2-piece, and 4-piece can give you 30% increase to charge and normal attack damage after using an elemental skill. As for his artifact set stats, you will need Sand to include HP percentage, Goblet to have Hydro damage bonus, and Circlet should either contain crit rate or crit damage depending on your build. And for his stat distribution of his artifact substats, they should contain energy recharge, HP percentage, crit rate, and crit damage. As for his talents upgrading priority, normal attacks comes first, elemental skill comes second, and at last you can upgrade his elemental burst. The reason why you want normal attacks to be upgraded as fast as possible is because his whole playstyle revolves around him using his charge attacks, but keep in mind that his skill and burst will provide source water droplets, will shorten the charging time of his charge attacks, and increases its damage by a lot. Also, on a side note, his passive talent will increase the entire party's movement speed by 15% when you're exploring Fontaine underwater, which is always a nice addition to have these little boosts. As for his team comps, one of the best ones could be Neuvillette, Fischl, Zhongli, or Kazuha. Now you can replace these units if you don't have any of them. For example, replace Fischl with Beidou or Yaimiko, and for Zhongli, you can use Diona, Baiju, and Kirara. And for Kazuha, you can use Venti or Sucrose as a replacement. The reason for the off-field Electro application is that it will work well with Neuvillette, since Electro Charge is a decent reaction that doesn't remove Hydro even during reaction, and since you want to reduce or remove the interruption that Neuvillette is gonna be susceptible to during his charge attacks, you need to use a character that can provide resistance as a shield, for example Kirara, Baiju, and the best one, Zhongli. And animal supports are always there for crowd control and buff purposes that they will bring in different forms to enhance your damage output, depending on if you're using Kazuha for more elemental damage buff, or Sucrose for more EM buff, and Venti for a bit of both. If you don't like Electrocharge team comps and you prefer something like a Hyper Bloom team, don't worry, I have something else for you. You may use him with a Dendro applier like Nahida, Yao Yao, or Dendro Traveler, plus a character like Cookie or Raiden for electro application, and at last, a character like Kazuha or Sucrose for crowd control, or a Zhongli for simply reducing the interruptions as I said before, or if you don't have Zhongli, Kokomi and Barbara could also be worth adding into this team, with Kokomi being the main preference. Not only this team can rely on Neuvillette's main DPS capabilities, it could also benefit from Hyper Bloom reactions, which is always a nice addition. But you gotta remember, there will be also a lot more team comps for this character, but we will see how they will perform in version 4.1 and afterwards, and right now, these are just speculations based on his kit and from what we've seen in the 4.1 livestream. In conclusion, do I think he's worth pulling? I would say if you need a main DPS and a hyper carry for horror content like Abyss, or maybe just the comfort of killing enemies in the open world quicker, Neuvillette will bring so much value to your account, and he is such a unique looking character, but since this is not a meta and competitive type of game, you should focus on pulling and building a character that you like the design or other aspects of them. Next character on the Phase 1 banner of 4.1 is Hu Tao. And she's a 5-star pyro polearm character that, same as Neuvillette, has the role of main DPS. And if you can't get her signature weapon, which is an amazing weapon called Staff of Homa, you may use a free-to-play option like Dragon's Bane, which will increase her elemental mastery by 221 at level 90 and increases damage against opponents affected by Hydro and Pyro by 20% at Refinement rank 1. And if you're like me and have it at R5, it will give you a 36% damage boost instead of 20%, and this weapon is good to see better numbers for reactions rather than personal damage for her. And a 3-star option like White Tassel is an absolute free-to-play option if you haven't obtained any Dragon's Bane before, which will increase your crit rate by 23.4 at level 90 and increases normal attacks by 24% at Refinement rank 1. But since it's a 3-star and easily obtainable from chest in Leeway, you can get the R5 and then it increases normal attacks by 48%. And if you happen to be a low spender and have Battle Pass, then you can't go wrong with Deathmatch. With 36.8 crit rate substat of this weapon, at level 90, you can expect a lot of damage. Now that we have weapon out of the way, let's talk about her artifacts. You have two great options, and the first one is Crimson Witch of Flames 4-piece set, which the 2-piece grants you 15% pyro damage bonus, and 4-piece increases overload, burning, and burgeon damage by 40%, and increases melt and vaporize by 15%. Using an elemental skill, increases 2-piece set effect, which was pyro damage bonus, by 50% for 10 seconds with the maximum of 3 stacks. And for your second option, 4-piece Shimanova set, which 2-piece giving 18% attack, and 4-piece effect being when casting an elemental skill, if the character has 15 or more energy, they lose 15 energy, and normal, charged, and plunging attacks damage increased by 50% for 10 seconds, and this effect will not trigger again during that duration, meaning it doesn't stack. But remember, since you lose energy with this artifact set, you should focus on having more energy recharge built as a substat for your artifacts, so just keep that in mind. And for artifact main stats of her, Sand should contain HP percentage, Goblet should contain pyro damage bonus, and Circlet can either have crit rate or crit damage based on your build. For stat distribution for her artifact substats, you should look for energy recharge, crit rate, crit damage, and HP percentage, and having elemental mastery in them would be nice, but it is not the main focus. Let's talk about her talent upgrading priority. At first should be normal attacks, then elemental skill, and lastly elemental burst. But in general, you will need all 3 of them leveled, since burst will also deal with massive amounts of damage and provide self-healing. And now, it's time to talk about her most valuable team comps. She can be paired with Xingqiu and Yelan to have a double Hydro off field with their burst for Vaporize team, plus a Zhongli or Kazuha for either crowd control in certain situations, and Zhongli to keep the main DPS, which in this case is Hu Tao alive and resistant to interruptions. Another fantastic and more free-to-play friendly team for her would be Hu Tao, Xingqiu, Xiangling, and Sucrose. Shenling's presence in this party will provide some buffs. For example, Pyro Resonance will provide 25% attack bonus, and her first constellation reduces enemies' resistance to Pyro, and her C6 will give all of her party members 15% Pyro damage bonus, which is always nice, and she's a great off-field Pyro support for Hu Tao. As for Sucrose, with 4-piece Iridescent can reduce enemies' resistance to elements that she swirls by 40%, and if you don't have a built Sucrose, or maybe you have a Kazuha or Venti, they will do the trick just fine, but for the most part, the additional elemental damage buff for Kazuha can sometimes be better. And Xingqiu is the best support unit for Hu Tao in most teams because of his amazing off-field burst support that he provides, that you can expect to see a lot of vaporized reactions and high damage numbers when these two are on the same team. In conclusion, do I think Hu Tao is worth pulling even in 2023? I have to say yes. If you're looking for a main DPS Pyro unit, she's your best option with a lot of free-to-play teams and weapons available for her. She doesn't require too much, aside from the fact that her Constellation 1 is kind of needed for more consistency, but doesn't mean that she isn't useful at all at C0, and whether you want to pull for her or Neuvillette will depend on your preference, such as design, gameplay, and if you already have either a Pyro or Hydro DPS and you need to have the other one for your account, since both of them will shine as a main DPS carry unit and not in supporting roles. Let me know down below in the comments what do you guys think of these two characters, and would you guys pull for Hu Tao or Neuvillette, or maybe even wait for phase 2 of 4.1? I would love to read your comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more content in the upcoming days, as it will help me a lot and I would appreciate it. With all that being said, have a good day or night, and peace.